gentlemen, welcome back to The Rock Show with Connor Farrell. Today, our guest, for fans of Eggy, it is Mike. We have Mike Goodman on the bass here. We're going to be talking everything. We're going to be talking lots of fun stuff. Anyways, cue intro. Okay, now that you're back from the intro, we're going to start with some rapid-fire questions before moving a little deeper. How does that sound, Mike?
That works for me. Let's go.
Okay. Question number one. What is one band, when you first really started falling in love with music, that was like, this is my favorite band? What was one of those first bands that you really remember getting into?
One of the first bands that I remember getting into was something that my dad would always play, and that was the Beach Boys.
Ooh. Okay, and now, for the lovely viewers at home who may not know the Beach Boys, they're Zoomers, They're 4-year-olds, they're Gen Beta. What's a good song that you think would just, boom, get someone addicted?
I would say Good Vibrations is a good starting point for the Beach Boys.
I agree. Okay, now, question 2 of the rapid fire. What would be one band you would say that you're recently getting into? They can be an old band, they can be a new band, but to you, you're just getting into them and you're like, oh, I'm loving it.
What's been really catching my ear lately is McGee. Not to be confused with Humphreys McGee, but McGee, guitar player, singer, songwriter.
Slightly different.
I would say very different, but both good.
Dude. Okay, wait. So all I've seen from McGee is like a couple TikToks here and there.
Yeah.
So for me, what do I need to listen to get addicted?
So the song that got me started on McGee is Candy. It's called Candy.
And how do I spell candy? The normal way? Is this
just
a weird
the normal
thing?
way?
Okay.
Yeah, that'll get you a taste, and then you can deep dive from there.
Okay, well, sweet. So now that we're on to all these lovely things, you're a bass player.
That's right.
And what made you want to do bass? I just want to get this because everyone has stereotypes. They go bass players that eat glue sticks, or they're like super nerdy. Like my brother, he's a bass player, and I've got my 5-string bass, and I need to learn how to tap and do and so he's super technical. Then I've had other bass players who are like, man, I'm just the one who smokes the most weed, and I'm the chillest, and so I can hold it down. There's all sorts of different profiles. You know what I mean? Why did bass resonate?
Well, if I'm being completely honest, it's a combination of all of those things you just mentioned.
Boom!
Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely a little bit of a nerdy aspect in a way to being a bass player. We love talking about gear.
Writing that down.
Yeah. We love talking about gear and just the subtleties of different instruments. But for me, I actually started playing bass in the elementary school orchestra.
Oh, no way.
3rd or 4th grade. And there were no bass players, and for whatever reason I didn't want to play violin, I didn't want to play cello or anything like that. I wanted to play bass. But I was a small kid, especially back then. I mean, I'm not very tall now either, but and so there wasn't a bass that fit me, an upright bass that fit me. So I actually played a cello, but I played it like a bass. That's how tiny I was.
Bro had the cello. Wait a minute. I thought I liked you. I didn't know why, but now I know. I started out on cello.
Yeah, see? My first instrument was a cello, but I played it as a bass.
And see, I played the cello as a guitar. I was over there. I was like, bro, I want to learn Green Day. But they're like, no, cello. I was like, okay.
Cello,
we'll
you
start
got
here.
a bass.
I was like, yeah. Cello! Oh, my God. I'm Jewish, so I'd say Shabbat Shalom, but you could say Shat Shalom.
we have to stick together, us Hebrews.
Well, and here's the thing: as another member of the tribe, how tall are you exactly? You say you're not that tall now. Even what is,
5'8", nice 5'8".
bro? I'm so mad at you. I'm so mad at you. I'm 5'6". Right here.
We can stretch
And
you
you're
out a
cooking
little.
me.
Yeah,
I'm like
there you
I'm
go. Puff that
tall.
chest,
I'm
puff
like
it out.
yeah. I'm like I know. I gotta compensate, right? I gotta. I what can I do?
No,
No,
you got it. You don't need to compensate for anything, Connor.
dude. Bro's at my goal weight, saying yeah, I'm short. My goal height. I'm like, gosh darn. Okay, wait. So nerd, gear, and subtlety. These are the three characteristics of a bass player, and you have all of them. So when it comes to gear and subtlety, what's like a piece of gear that you actually think is like if the 80/20 of like how to make it sound good? Like
Yeah,
what is like the actual most important stuff when it comes to bass?
it's for me, and I'll say just for me, compression. I use compression all the time, and that to me is just like what makes my bass sound the best at all times.
And that what you say is your number one thing for bass.
Yeah, if I had nothing else, I would have my compressor pedal, and my amp and my bass.
Boom. Okay. So then what type of amp, what type of bass? Let's go quick.
My amps that I'm using right now, Aguilar. Love those amps. I remember when I first plugged into an Aguilar amp, the first thing I said was like, "This is what a bass is supposed to sound like," and so I've been using Aguilar ever since. And for bass, right now I'm using, um, it's a company. They make the basses in Germany. It's called Sandberg, but it's basically a fancy Fender style bass. You know,
Huh.
um, nothing too crazy. Fender style, looks like a Fender, plays like a Fender, but um, just a little bit different craftsmanship.
Okay. And so when did you find out about these different things? How long were you rocking it without compression, without, the amp, without the.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, I wasn't. I grew up mostly playing jazz, and so these like the specifics and the nerdiness of the tone of the bass like wasn't that important in the jazz context. But once I started branching out into playing more rock and roll and funk and things like that, uh, it became apparent that the sound of my bass was just as important as how well I played. And so that probably started after college for me. Yeah,
Oh, we got low light. What happened?
yeah,
The light
it came
flickered.
back.
There you go. Oh, well, okay, so you started out as a jazz cat because I was
Yeah,
going to say this is kind of I'm so happy that you're saying like compression and like these were all the things I was kind of looking at when I was listening to a bunch of your music. I was like, okay, I'm talking to the bass player. I'm like, let me like specifically listen to the bass and be like, what do I pick up on? And so what kind of popped out to me was like kind of the hard truth of being a guitarist who wants to like do all these like kind of like dense things and chords. It's like I'm playing rock, so the instant I put on distortion, you hear a cloud of notes. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
don't really hear everything distinctly, especially if you put on fuzz. Like you're not hearing it,
hmm
right? And you're like, oh, what do people hear? You're like the rhythm.
yeah,
Like you hear, so you're like, oh, I'm over here like the lead guitarist. All they care about is rhythm. And even during a solo, like if you don't mix up the rhythm and you're just shredding the whole time, it's like one way ticket to a bad solo.
yeah. It can
Like
get boring fast.
boring fast. Yeah, rhythm is like the ultimate thing, and like you want to have some chops so that like once you like want to boom do a fast thing or do a thing that like kind of goes with everything, you have, I don't know, guess like you're able to be more fluid with it,
Yeah.
but you need the rhythm. And so I've been like mixing like stuff and trying to get better at that. And I saw some videos. They're like, oh, take the bass, take the low end, and put it on its own track, and like low pass it, get rid of all the high content, and put
Hmm.
that on another track where you low pass it, and on the low one, compress the absolute hell out of it, and turn it up so you get the thuds, boom, boom, of
Yeah.
that when you're actually listening to recording, and so the bass actually
It
does what
cuts
it
through.
does.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then you can put on, like, if you need to, if it's like a really kind of like distorted mix or whatever, you can put some distortion on the high end stuff, and you can tweak how, present that is, or if it's
Hmm.
competing with the vocals, the snares, or whatever other stuff there is, right? You can kind of adjust that separately, but you're getting the pum, 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 the rhythmic element of the bass no matter what.
Yeah, you
And
got to have
so,
that punchiness, and I feel like the compression really helps that punch.
yeah, and so I guess I was kind of like when I was listening to your playing, I heard well, really funky, like a lot of stuff. So what was your the funk and the rhythm and the punchiness of it, and like you were using the bass as a weapon. You're like
Yeah,
boom, boom, like you're like I want to make sure you know where this beat is, this beat, and
yeah,
then boom, boom, and like you were, I was like, man, I'm like maybe good bands are defined by good bassists. As much as I don't want that to be the case, I'm a front man. I want it to be oh the
yeah.
singer's so
Well,
good oh you know
the 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 joke quote is that the your band is only as good as your drummer, but maybe the bass player is just as important.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, look at Royal Blood. They're all bass player and all drummer. you
Yep,
know,
that's it.
you're like White Stripes, no bass player.
No, yeah, or the Doors, no bass player.
You're as bad as your key player. No, you're as bad as your drug dealer. Um, back in the '60s, probably. Right, we're
True.
only as good as Joe Lennon. And you gotta get on your marijuana. You gotta get your psychoactive compounds, and that's very important back in the day. These days it's all about compression, these Aguilar amps, these Sandbergs. It's like what
Yep.
happened to the good old days? Come on, no. So okay, so you started with jazz,
Yes.
right? And then you became funkier and rockier. What was that like evolution? And how does your jazz kind of like background, like how does it make you realize? Were there other times where you're playing with people? You're like, oh, I'm thinking about this. I like approaching how I approach the song and the bass. I'm approaching this like differently from how you guys are, and like, oh, I didn't realize it, but I am actually like coming at it from a different way. Like, what are those kind of things that you've realized are distinct with the way that maybe other people approach things, but you don't?
Yeah, I think that for me coming from jazz and now being in sort of this jam band context, it allows me to be fairly free with my improvisation. I've been used to improvising and never playing the same thing the same way twice. Um, and that really helps in this context because that's kind of what we're trying to do with our rock music. Um, is find ways to make it evolve each time we play it, and when we go into the jams and the improvisation, that we are always exploring new territory. And coming from jazz, that's not an unfamiliar territory for me. That was in my blood. Uh, so it was kind of an easy way to slip into this rock and roll thing where it's like, oh, I actually get to still use all the skills and listening skills that I've learned by playing jazz all these years. I don't have to get rid of any of that. I get to actually use it, and it actually helps me in creating moments with the band.
Yeah. So you end up being kind of, I guess, the perfect kind of person to be the bass player in a jam band versus normal rock guy. You're like, oh, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I like to think so.
yeah, man. Okay, well, there's a lot of places to go from that. I guess then my next question would be when you're approaching something like studio stuff, like you guys did, like last year,
Hmm.
right? You can first off, you can hear the evolution if you go back and listen through all of your jams and your tour stuff. You can see like how a lot of those songs evolved. But how do you then, when you're live, you're trying to play everything different. You never play the same thing the same way twice, right?
Yeah.
But then on a record, how much of that do you want to do, right? Because if you're trying to make it like a tight, condensed, boom shot of like this is the song distilled,
Yeah.
how do you still
Well,
get that potency without, you know, people feeling like it's so unstable that they can't actually like latch on and follow it?
yeah. I mean, I think you kind of nailed it on the head there. Um, when making a record, it's important to be really precise and thoughtful about every note and the way it interacts with all the different instruments in each moment. And I think that was the beauty of getting to do a record like Waiting Game. It gave us the opportunity to look at a song and say, hey, what is the best version of the bass part for this song? What is the best keyboard part we could possibly come up with? And how do we get that on tape and sounding the best? Um, and it's very different than what we do live, but it and ends up enhancing what we do live. It enhances our sensibilities. It makes us more aware of where we fit in the context of a song. Am I just playing a bass part, or am I adding the extra sauce in this one section that makes it pop? Or if I don't play in this specific part, this specific section, I lay out for a bit, then the keyboard gets a chance to shine. And being able to spend a lot of dedicated time for each song on the record really enhances the way that we perceive songs.
It's fascinating. Like what you're saying about like, I guess I didn't realize, but you would have to figure out, okay, when are the parts non-negotiable?
Right.
When is the
Exactly.
bass line non-negotiable? It doesn't matter if we're jamming, like it's not going to pop. Like the part's not going to pop to the extent that like, oh, it makes it 10 out of 10
Right.
unless I play it. But then there's other parts where you're like, I'm not the one making it shine. There's another thing.
Yeah,
That's
and
yeah.
it's different than playing live or even playing in the practice space where it's like, oh, like here's the song, this is how it goes, let's just try to play it. But when you're in the studio, it's important to sit there and really, is what I'm playing serving the purpose of this whole song? And it's not just about me as a bass player or Jake as a guitar player. Does this service the song in a way that can be timeless? Because a record, once it's on tape, it lives forever. So it's important to really sit and digest what you're doing and know how it makes the song feel. Not how it makes me feel as a player or as a musician or as in a person with ego. You have to really let go of that and say, hey, am I servicing this song or this record or the vibe that we're going for? And I think being in the studio really allows you to take the time to get rid of that ego and just say, is this right?
Yeah. And I think something I've had like very little experience with, but even if I'm working on something, I'm in Logic Pro on my laptop. I can maybe show it my two input Scarlett interface right now,
Hey,
right?
those are great.
Dude, I love it. But just I show it to someone else, and I can just be like, "Hey, I've got studio ears. I'm hearing everything as nothing, and nothing as everything. I've been listening to it too long, or I've been playing. I'm too in this song. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how does it sound?" And even if they're not a musician, you can just tell. They either go like, "Oh, Oh, that's good. Or they go like, I something's not working maybe, and then they'll like
Yeah,
try and give you what they think it is, and half the time they're like, it might not be the right thing, but you can tell. And so I guess when you guys were going in and doing waiting game, what was the importance of having a producer or having an extra person who wasn't like one of you guys, who wasn't, there's no ego invested in it. The only
right.
ego they actually have is incentivized to make the sound good because they're going to be referenced as the producer of it. So they're like, oh, no,
Right.
no, I got to be real with you. And like, whatever I'm hearing, we got to figure out how to make it be what I need to be hearing. Right. So what was that process like? Was that new? Was that interesting? Was it like,
It was definitely a new process for us. I mean, for a long time, it was just the four of us ever making our music together. We had the extreme pleasure and benefit of working with James Petrali, who was our producer, and um, he is the singer songwriter for White Denim, who is one of our favorite bands, and he was a huge part of this process. I know he was, even before we even made it to the studio, Jake and Donnie were sitting down with him and they were tweaking lyrics and tweaking stuff on demos before we even got into the studio. And having somebody who's not as connected to the song is really great. They don't have that same kind of attachment to be like, hey, that thing, throw that out. Try something different. Oh, normally you would play, for our keyboard player Donnie. Normally you would play organ on this part, but let's not use that. Let's use this synthesizer, and like throwing different things at us that we never would think of. The thing that comes to mind to me, one of the songs on the album, Gentle Clown, we came in and we had a demo version of that song, and it was kind of a slow song, slow groovy kind of thing. And James heard it and he was like, oh, this is a really great song. But just as an exercise, when you go to play it now, play it as fast as you can. Not just play it faster. Be like, can you play it as fast as you can possibly get it out of your body? And we did that. We listened back, and that tempo, that version of the song is what ended up on the record. So if we were left to our own devices, that song would have been completely different. And just having him push us to that point of being like, again, play this as fast as your body will let you play it and see how that sounds. And in our heads, it was kind of a way just to like get out of some of the fatigue. But I think he knew that song needed to be faster, and rather than just telling us, "Hey, this I think this song needs to be faster," he showed it to us in a way. Oh, we got a
my
ghost.
light died. My light died. Oh my God. Oh shoot, it's smoking. Don't want the smoke detector to go off. Well, I guess I gotta put
Oh
a new
no!
light bulb in that. Let's see.
Oh no!
Maybe I can turn the brightness up on here. Do 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 do. Oh my God. There we go.
There we go. There he is.
Lighting. Anyways, but okay, so like that exercise of like faster, just play it faster. Like having
Yeah,
another person, yeah. Oh, it's so nice because then you could. I mean, that's why people are like, the Rick Rubin. They're like, he doesn't know an instrument. He doesn't know music theory. He can't tell you about the upper extensions of the chords and how they interact and the voice lead. He's like, play it really fast, or like,
yeah,
well, like it's sometimes it's just like someone can hear it and go, I think I hear something.
yeah. And it's also good, even just to have someone be like, "That's good." I think, especially as the performer, you can always be like, oh, I feel like I can do it better. I feel like I could do it again. Let me try it again. Let me try this different thing. And to have someone also just be like, actually, I think that was great, is a
Yep.
huge resource. Again, us as the player, in almost every instance, like I'm gonna think I think I could have done that better, or I think I could have done it differently, or and it's there's a diminishing returns. It's is 1% better over the course of an hour of trying to get something. Is that actually beneficial, or is this 99% good? Like, does that actually serve the music the best? And yeah, just again, having somebody not just to tell you when things need to be different, but tell you when things can stay exactly the way that they are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an interesting point, right? Because you're saying, oh, when you go into the studio and you're not jamming live, but you're in the studio, it kind of lives forget forever when it's on
Yeah,
tape, right? Like you're saying, but then you got to balance that with kind of like Steve Jobs talks about, like real artists ship. They ship the product. At a certain point, they stop tinkering with it and they just go, boom, it's out into the world. And like finding that balance of like, maybe that's easier with a producer, but just also kind of like, how do you know when you're tinkering with something, versus when you're actually like, well, it's going to be on tape forever. I don't want it to be like lousy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Well, no, what were you saying?
Yeah, it really is just a great resource, and James in particular has such a good sensibility for songwriting and rock music. Um, we were able to put a lot of trust in him, and when he said something was good, we were able to put that trust and believe him. And when he said something needed to change, not feel too attached to it, and believe that he had the right vision for us. And I think he did, and working with him, I think we made a really great record.
Awesome. Well, so do you think in the future you want to do another record with him, or do you want to do some more live stuff? Do you want to try other producers to just like get to work with more people, maybe multiple producers? What do you like? Where are you guys at?
It's hard to say right now. We're still in a process of figuring out what songs we want to record next. Um, but man, working with James was so great. I mean, I would welcome the opportunity to record with him again any time for sure. But yeah, right now we're still in the process of writing new songs, and Jake and Donnie are writing a lot of new stuff and figuring out what maybe we want to do similarly or different than our last album. And yeah, it's hard to say exactly what direction it's going to go in right now, but we're constantly moving that process forward, and getting ready to make a new record. We never want to, we always want to be working on the next project in some way. But yeah, I would love to work with James again, but um, you never know what opportunities uh, happen to you as you're writing and getting ready for a record. Um, but
Yeah,
totally love James and would love to do that again.
James, I just want to say you did a good job. You did a
He
very good
really
job.
did.
Record sounds amazing. I'm very. I was like, I mean, it's not even like a part of me was like, it's so different from the live stuff, but like in a good way,
Yeah,
right? It doesn't sound like the same. Like it's clearly like, oh, this is like so like one's got like, it just feels more freeform. It's got a lot more of like what you're saying, improvisation, and that really comes through. But versus that record, you're like, ooh, you're like, yeah, this does feel like the iconic kind of singular take of these songs.
yeah.
And so here's a question I want to hit you: is when you got into this jam world, or and you started finding out about things, did you get into rock more broadly and then kind of the jam scene, like as a fan, or did you get into the jam scene and then found out about more rock? Because I'm going to say personally, for me, my touch point for the jam stuff that's most relatable is in high school. I really got into Frank Zappa, and he would
Mm-hmm.
have all these records, and he'd have kind of the version of the song, but then he'd have live records, and like every live record, it's like a 20-minute solo and like improvisation. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
an iconic version of that for me was his album Apostrophe. Every song's really good, and it's the iconic version, like your guys' record. But there's one song, Stinkfoot, and it's horrible. It's so bad. It's awful. And I'm like, why is this done on the record? And then like a year later, they do it live, and they've got, and it's my favorite song of all of his recorded music ever is the live version, and it's so different, but it's the same parts, it's the same idea. And so, like, what's up with that? What's that process as a jammer yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I got into jam music like fairly early on, even though it wasn't what I was playing every day. I mean, I grew up listening to the Grateful Dead and from my dad and people like that. So I was always in like from the time I was a kid, I was always hearing that kind of music. Um, and then in high school, I started to discover Fish, and that became, I was completely blown away by what they were doing. They were my favorite band, and at the time, they were not together. And I had just gone so deep into listening to Fish, and I had all these bootleg CDs. I would download everything I could from the internet, and I got just so into it. Um, and then eventually when I was in high school, they got back together, and I was able to start going to see them a lot. And um, a lot of my college experience, besides being at music college, was taking time to go see a lot of Fish shows. Um, and so that was a huge influence for me as far as like getting into the jam music. Was first the Grateful Dead, and then from there Fish and bands like Humphreys McGee and Assembly of Dust. Things like that were huge parts of what I was listening to in high school, other than Miles Davis.
Well, then who are some of your favorite, I guess, like players when it comes to like, I guess when it comes to bass, but just in general, like, is there anyone you've like taken stuff from? Like I said, I love Frank Zappa, and when he would solo, he would do pentatonic scale, but he would sweep it. And so instead of doing da da da, like doing one note, two note, two note on kind of how normal people would play it, he would do all of them kind of spread out a little more, but he would do three notes, and so you could like go diddle diddle diddle. You could throw in these kind of faster things without having to be good, and you could do diddle, and you could just like, so I would like adapt some of those things, and like I learned a little bit of like sweep picking stuff, but I don't really like the hyper technical like, oh, I guess like it sounds like just playing classical music and just like super fast. But I would take some of those things, and I'm kind of like, huh, it changes how I play in a way that like I think it contributes to me not sounding like everyone else on the guitar,
Mm-hmm.
but also like I feel like, oh, I've got like a thing, but it's notable. Like, you know what I mean? Like I also take stuff from like the guy from Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi. I'm like
Yeah.
that. I'm like, and there's like using fourths and doing like chords that have a lot of like fourths and stuff where you don't pick a third. It's not even suspended because you're not resolving to like a third in a chord. You're just like and I'm like, oh, and like, so there's things like that I kind of like, and I don't do them in a way that sounds exactly like them, but I definitely know like I got this from this person when
Mm-hmm.
I heard them doing it, when I learned a part. So for you on bass, were there things where you're like, I like that, I'm going to play around with that, and then it's just like become a thing in your playing that you really enjoy?
Yeah. I mean, um, the probably one of the most influential electric bass players on my playing is a guy, Lee Sklar. Um,
Huh.
he is mostly like a session bass player, but he played with everybody from James Taylor to Toto to Billy Cobham on like a jazz fusion side. He probably is my most influential, and whenever I hear one of his bass parts, I say that's what I want to play when I play. Um, taking a lot from him. I think Jack Bruce from Cream,
Oh,
another really big influence on my electric bass playing. Um, James Jamerson, all that Motown stuff. really, really influential. And obviously Jaco Pastorius. Um, Again, just all these people, pioneers and um, mavericks of the electric bass, that when I hear them play, I'm always thinking, that's what I would want to play.
Dude, yeah, no, definitely. And you reminded me like Clapton. Like, oh,
Yeah, yeah. I
and
mean,
just the Cream stuff.
Cream is one of the best things that has ever existed, in my opinion.
Dude,
Again, I'm a huge Jack Bruce fan,
yeah.
so that may bias me a little bit, but I love Cream.
So what are some of your standout songs you would say then? Because you're looking at from that perspective, and I'm coming at it from a guitar player, kind of singer perspective. So what songs? What are the ones that you're really enamored with?
Um, I'm so glad. Um, Wrapping paper. Um, let's see. I mean, I even like some of the weird stuff, like Anyone for Tennis. Um, just I I just love Cream, and I love, especially, um there were a lot of times, a lot of live Cream stuff where Jack Bruce is playing fretless bass and just doing things that you wouldn't think he would be doing in that kind of rock blues context, and really, really creative, and um, like I said, influential on not just me, but bass playing, rock bass playing, and for the future.
So how do you? So what are some of those elements that stuck out where you're like, that's so creative?
For Jack Bruce, I think the way he would use sort of like the upper register, um, of the guitar, of the bass guitar, um, not being afraid to play hard, also,
Mhm.
um, was really, really influential. I think with someone like Lee Sklar, his creativity and use of notes that aren't the root note on
Mm.
chords, and for creating melodic bass lines, really is what sticks out for me, for him. Um, Jaco Pastorius, bass as a lead instrument, um, really, just doing things that you didn't hear other people doing at the time. All those guys did really influential things. Um, James Jamerson, the way that his feel and the way he would bounce around different chords and make the, not bass as a lead instrument, but bass as the hook of the song. That, you listen to a lot of those Motown stuff, whether it's like Jackson 5 or anything like that. It's like, oh, the part that you remember of that song was his bass line. Um, and for a lot of stuff before that, the bass was just in the background.
Yeah, yeah. You've got man. Yeah, it's interesting. So when you're playing and you're sitting down, you're like, okay, I picked up the bass. You're like, I'm gonna have fun, right? You're like, okay, it's gonna be like that's how I feel when I pick up the guitar. I'm like, we're about to lose an hour. We're gonna melt
Oh
into
yeah.
that. I'm gonna get lost. It's gonna be so fun. I like kind of have some things where I'm like, I can get lost doing that, and it gets me right in the zone. What what kind of stuff like gets you to lose like an hour? You're gone.
Um, I I love learning songs. I think that,
Oh.
um, learning how other people play and expanding your repertoire is the thing that adds to your bag of tricks more than anything. So I will pick maybe it's something I heard on the radio, especially if I'm listening to like Sirius satellite radio, where this is such a diverse thing. Something I heard on the radio, a bass line will catch my eye, and I will sit down and I'll learn something note for note, exactly what they played, what, and then sit there and think, why did they make that choice? Oh, how does this relate to the what the guitar player is playing? And that's what makes me all of a sudden realize I've spent an hour working on one song, making sure all of the articulation and the feel of everything is just right. And I've always been in the camp of that. Your repertoire is really how you get better as a player, because you have all these different bits and pieces of songs and things that you know, and when you go to improvise or go to create a bass line, write a bass line for a new song, having just such a diverse catalog of things that are already in your fingers that you don't have to think about anymore on how to play them. That's what creates a personal style, is taking all these different things that you've learned and using bits and pieces from everything, and that's how you create your own voice and your own style. And so for me, it's always learning new tunes is what gets me going.
Man, okay. Well, so okay, when you're talking about that, you're talking about like you're not just talking about the notes because you're saying you do want to get stuff under your fingers, and I get that, and that's like, everyone gets that. But I think what I'm hearing from you, and I think this might be a pattern of why I recognize, oh, good bassist, really good band, like is you're not just looking at, and this is something guitarists mess up, and especially when I was giving like guitar lessons,
Mm-hmm.
it was it's not the notes of the solo. Part of it is, and part of it's getting, but it's like you need to get a close enough tone, a decent. I mean, literally for most solos, it's like, does it have distortion on it? It's like, okay, have some distortion on it. Okay, that's like you don't need to get
Yeah.
it dialed in exactly, right? But then it's like, okay, do you have the notes? You're like, do you have them roughly in time? Oh, then it comes down to the articulation.
Yeah.
How soft versus hard do these different parts come out? How kind of ahead of the beat, how like slow, how sloppy, how tight are some of these things? Like that's so much of it. The swagger on guitar sometimes is like a huge part of it. It's not the literal like kind of, I guess you would say like the discrete logical, like this is the thing, like when you listen to a tab, right? I'll listen to like Ultimate Guitar, I'll be like learning a part and I'll click play and you're like the guitar solo, I have to go back and listen to the
Yeah.
original song. I can learn the notes from here or most of them if it's close
If
enough,
it's right.
but that's step
Yeah. I
one.
mean, especially with bass parts, and the articulation is so important. Was this note short? Was this
Yeah.
one long? Was it short long? Are they all the same, or in one
Yep.
measure do you have three different articulations? Oh, this note is soft and this one is plucked, you know. Um
Pick. Do you use pick? What's your thought on that?
um I go back and forth. I use a pick when I feel like it makes
Yeah.
sense and enhances the part, or um again, if I'm learning a song and the bass player is using a pick, damn straight I'm gonna learn that song with a pick, um because that's also part of it too. It's like, oh, um you go and try to play, um even something like The Police, and you go and learn a Sting part. Well, Sting played with his thumb a lot, so it's like, okay, I should do that. If I want it to sound like Sting, if I want to get that feel, I should do that. Um, if I'm learning a Pink Floyd thing, Roger Waters, he used a pick. Like I should if I want to sound like him at all, um, I got to do that. Um, but I mostly play with, if I had the if you asked me just to pick up the bass and play, I would use my fingers. But always trying to be just as versatile with a pick as I am with playing with my fingers is really important. I know it, you know, it's not always easy going back and forth, but it's something that I've been working on for a long time and just trying to be as proficient with both. Even if I'm doing like running scales and doing practice type stuff, um, I'll pick up the pick every once in a while and be like, okay, can I do this with a pick? Um, and obviously, there's certain limitations to either or. Some things you can't do with a pick that you can do with your fingers, and vice versa. Um, but a lot of time, sometimes those limitations um, is what enhances a song or a part. I know even in jamming, if I'm feeling a little stale and I've been playing with my fingers all night, I'll turn back to my amp and pick up a pick, and my ideas and creativity, it becomes completely different. So I think it's really important to do both uh, as a bass player.
So likewise, when you pick up the pick, you get that spurt of like inspiration, different ideas. I know
Mm-hmm.
if I have guitars that are in different tunings, right?
Yep.
I mean, the instant I pick it up, I'm like, oh, one, I'm like, I've got no more ideas. I'm not writing a song ever again. I'm a failure. What's happening? It's my brain, my hands, my art. It doesn't happen. And then I pick up the guitar. It's in different tuning. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
I'm the best. And it's just like instantly. It's instantly. It's instant. Like I know Royal Blood. Like he's like I have 8 basses, like 18 basses. They're all in different tunings. I pick them up.
Yeah.
Every song is a different tuning. So I'm
Yeah.
never getting like in these patterns. My fingers like know things, but I'm surprised constantly. So I find new melodies, new articulations, new ideas. Like oh my God. So it's like do you have like multiple basses? Do you like different pedals? What does that for you? And do you use that live to keep yourself like in case you break glass in case of you know feeling uncreative? Do you have
Yeah.
something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I use I pretty much use the same bass all the time. Um, I I can get like a diverse range of sounds just from the one instrument, which is really important for me. Um, as a live player, like not having to switch guitars if I want to change my sound, being
Got
able
it.
to do it on board, change the pickups, adjust my tone on the fly and not have to stop and play anything. um, and effects pedals are great for that too. I have a pedal board. It's not crazy, but I do have some things that allow me to break the mold a little bit. Um, I have some synthesizer pedals and multi effects units and things that I can use when I'm feeling a little lack of creativity and I need a boost. Um, and thankfully, being such an in a band with amazing musicians and we're always improvising, something that I always think about if I'm feeling like I can't come up with an idea, um, one of my bandmates, I'm sure, is playing something amazing. And if I remember to listen to them instead of focusing so much on what I'm doing, I get back in my creativity starts flowing again. Once I realize like, oh, if I've been maybe a little too focused on what I'm playing and feeling like I can't come up with any ideas, but then I listen to my keyboard player and he's playing something really interesting, and it's like, oh, duh, that's my answer right there. I don't have to look very far. He's right over here. The answer is always right there. And I think that especially recently, remembering that if I'm feeling stale, at least one of the four of us on stage has got something fresh and good going on that I can listen to them and pick up something good.
Dude, I mean absolutely. I mean I've I mean, do you know how many times I'm like, I've got no energy. I don't feel like this. I don't feel creative. I don't want to get on camera. I'm like, and then the instant you start talking to someone, you're like you get you boom, creativity, energy, or even like if I'm in person, I'm like, I don't know if I feel like doing this. I don't feel that creative today at rehearsal. And then like
Yeah.
once you get into it, you're just like, oh, wait a minute. yeah,
Yeah, I forgot. I forgot
yeah,
it's not just on me.
yeah. That's the nice thing. It's like if you're like trying so hard and it's not happening, you're like, what if I uh, just like detense for a second, look around, actually absorb. You instantly, they say people, you know, people who are interested in things are interesting, and likewise, I think people who are listening and who can listen for things, and you're finding things that are exciting you when you're listening. Well, then you become exciting to listen to. Like
Yeah.
you're just like, hey, I don't feel like I'm exciting to listen to right now. You're like, oh, let me shut the hell up and start listening.
Yeah.
I might find a lot of stuff that surprises me. And so, okay, so that's great. And so you mentioned working with James Petrali. I wrote that down, White Denim.
Mhm.
I wanted to pronounce his name. Pronunciation. I wanted to pronounce his name, but when you think about how you guys grew in collaborations, you had like Grace Bowers. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Daniel Donato. Like you had all these people that you've worked with. Like you see this new crop coming up. You see the old crop, the dead, fish, not that old, but like relative to when you guys, started getting going. What's kind of your view on the landscape of rock, of the jam scene, um, and just kind of the culture of that? And where do you think it's going in the future? Do you think people are going to pop up like from doing social media videos, and then they pop up and then they go collab with a band who already has a band and songs and stuff, and they come and they like pop in? Or do you think they're going to be like, no, I got to do a band and I got to gig at clubs? Do you think it's going to be a mix? How's that all like interacting?
Well, I think right now we're in a really great climate for live music and live rock and roll. I think we have seen a huge resurgence of people, young and old, like going out for the first time or going back out and seeing music. I think the success of Goose has a lot to do with that. Um, I think they're a fantastic band, and the way that they've engaged both a younger and older audience to become passionate again about this kind of music is really great. I think it benefits us all, and um, you know, growing up in Connecticut and also Boston, knowing those guys for like a long time, um, couldn't be happier for them, and couldn't be happier for what it's doing to the state of live music right now. Um, I think I think there'll always be a spot for live music and for improvising and for the kind of thing that we do. But right now is just a really great time. I mean, you brought up Daniel Donato, who is absolutely incredible, really good friend. Him and his band we're really good friends with those guys. We talk to them all the time. We did a tour with them about a year ago, and um, again, just love what they're doing, and so happy to know them and call them friends and see their success as well. Um, Grace Bowers is interesting, her being so young and getting into this. I love to see that, and can't wait to see where she goes with it. Um, I think social media is, some people see it as a negative. I've never seen it that way. I don't think our band views it that way. Um, I think as long as you're doing what you love and doing it right, I think social media is just a great way to not only reach the fans that you already have, but maybe reach somebody who would have never listened to you before. And I think that um, as younger people and more people um, are merging those two things, the social media, the TikToks, and the live music. I think really it only stands a chance of benefiting everyone.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I've had a theory. You let me know what you think about it.
Yeah, let's
But
hear it.
I I know there's the classic like you gig and you tour and you do this and you build up live audience and yada yada yada. That's one route that's been around. But I feel like in rock another kind of archetype will emerge. There's also the social media like this is me playing these guitar solos, this is me playing things, and that does well, and you can build a following doing that, and then you can at a certain point you can transition into anything because you've got so much of a following in one area
Hmm.
that now you just have a following, and you've got fans, you've got supporters, and you're a good spot. But I wouldn't be surprised if, like how in comedy, people realized, wait, I can podcast, and if I get an audience from that, I can make money from that. Now I've got 40 extra hours a week to get better at stand up and do more gigs and do more things. And now I've got an audience who already likes me and I'm publicized and they see, oh my God, you're getting really, really, really good. And they're going to
Hmm.
go and tell all their friends. Then boom, you can really blow up. And so I'm like, I wonder if that won't happen in rock. And I don't see a reason why not. And so maybe you've got the same way that someone, who would be really good and really successful, like, and really kind of click doing videos themselves in the room playing guitar, might not be the same person who would click and become successful if the only way to do that was playing gigs every night, you know what I mean, and trying to get a record
Yeah,
deal in the 80s. Likewise, I wouldn't be surprised if people who are good at talking on a microphone, right, who might not be they might not be like, I'm on the West Coast. So I did a bunch of gigs. I had my band, but like it would just take so much like effort and time and all these things to get gigs booked. And then like at a certain point, it just got too expensive for like
yeah,
everyone. Even like fans were like, it's going to be like $40 to park. It's going to be $10 for the ticket, $20 for the ticket because of the venue. Then if I want food or water, like it just, everything started getting more and more expensive. And then a lot of people started like moving. Like a lot of our fans left around like halfway through COVID. Even my bass player, like half my band was like, hey, I can't afford to live in San Diego.
yeah,
Sorry. And so like that's where I was kind of like, maybe I should lean into the internet stuff more. And so now posting on YouTube, I'm finally starting to get like, oh, this video's got a couple thousand views. This video's got a couple thousand
yeah.
views. And then like and things are starting to like take off more and more. But I guess I'm interested. Do you think that in 10 years you'll see a healthy contingent of like kind of bands starting from people doing like podcasts and YouTube? Because I haven't seen a lot of YouTube people who make guitar or bass videos transition into actually like having bands. Like there's Rob Scallon, there's a lot of these guys you could see, right?
Hmm.
Bass players, but I don't really like. I haven't seen any of them. It's like maybe because I don't want to, right? Maybe they like the fact they're already doing well from YouTube, and like I'm not like it's not like a disparaging thing. It's you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I'm just like it's, but I guess I'm interested because I'm like, why hasn't it happened? Why haven't there been like a deluge of all of these people who got big on social media talking about music and doing rock music, but why aren't they then like taking that momentum and selling out arenas?
yeah. Well, I think, um, like
Yeah,
I think it will, as you know, as time progresses, like these things are going to merge more and more. Um,
yeah,
I think that of course, building up any kind of following and then asking them to come out and see you play. I mean, how could only be a good thing. I mean, I've seen it work for bands even that we know, who have gotten you know following on TikTok from making cover videos, and then they go and play shows, and man, people really show up for them. Um, so I think it's definitely um, a possibility, and I think it's definitely heading in that direction for sure. Um, but at the same time, I think there's no substitute for getting out there and playing as much as you can. Um, you you can learn so much as a player just by playing with other people. Um, there's only so much you can do as an armchair expert in your room. Um, I know even when I was at Berkeley and at music school, there would be times where I would come to my teacher, and he would say, "Oh, did you practice the whatever XYZ thing that you did?" And I'd be like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry. Like I had like 4 gigs this week, and I just like didn't quite get to it." And he'd be like, "Man, never mind. Like you were playing, like that is as much practice and homework as like you could do. It's like actually being out there and playing." Um, so I think it all goes hand in hand. I don't think one, especially as um, social media becomes more important in all of our lives, which it is. I don't think you can have one without the other in any aspect. I think to be a successful band right now, you need to focus on social media and having a successful presence there. And I think if you wanted to go from the other way, I don't think you could sacrifice um, actually like getting out there and doing it. I really think it's a and more a symbiotic relationship, and they have to go hand in hand. And um, like I said, from whichever direction you start from, I think eventually you're going to have to find a way to merge both of these concepts. And I think honestly, I think we're all better for it. I think um, we're getting better for concentrating a little bit on social media and how to build that presence. I think that's um, making us a better and more thoughtful band, both between us and to each other, but between us and to our fans. Um, and yeah, I think that again, more and more these things are going to be hand in hand. It's going to be really important to be focusing on both aspects of that as a musician.
Yeah. And so do you I guess this is something I've kind of observed is the bands that I'm seeing really get to the point where they've got all of these things kind of firing on all cylinders. Like they've hit critical velocity. Like they're crushing it. Is much more in the jam scene than it is just outside of the jam scene, but still within rock. If there's two circles, there's a big
Yeah.
circle, and there's the jam scene, there's another circle within it. Um, I've seen tons and tons of really good bands, but like the ones that actually, because my theory is if you're like, okay, I'm going to go out and see a band live, you're like, okay, well, if they're just going to play everything exactly like the record, I've got that for free at home
Mm-hmm.
in my pajamas. I don't have to put pants on. I don't have to spend money. I don't have to be seen by people. Like, versus you're like, it's all spontaneous. It's going to be
Yeah.
crazy. It's going to be an event. Some people are going to come and do psychoactive compounds. Like you're going to have a different experience than in your bedroom. And I think the kind of that pitch of going to a jam band, like I'm the guy who goes to backyard shows and goes to all these things, but none of my friends do. I invite them and they're like, "Yeah, no, bye." They'll even like they'll show up and let's come carpool, and they'll be like, we'd rather go and play Minecraft," and then they leave. And so I'm like, do you think the jam scene has like just a better advantage when it comes to like getting people out live? Do you think it just is more compelling to people in the age of infinite options on TikTok?
I think there is something to be said about that. Knowing that, you know, even if you saw the same band 6 months ago and they come back to your town, you're going to get a completely different experience. I think a lot of it has to do with the fans,
Mm.
the dedicated nature of the fans of jam band music. Um, when we play shows, even last night, talking to one of our fans after the show, he's like, man, I've listened to every single, and we record and upload every single one of our shows. They're all available, either on Bandcamp or on Nugs, if you have a Nug subscription. um, he's like, I've listened to every single one of your shows since like 22. um, and I think that the nature of a jam band fan, they want more. If you can give them more, they will take more. And I think that's what's really beneficial for us as rock jam band musicians is this like dedicated fan base that just can't get enough. Um, and we try to provide that as much as we can. You know.
Yeah. And so then I guess my next question is, who are you seeing? Right? Who is like, this is incredible, but no one knows about him yet? And I guess even outside of that, what are your predictions for like the next decade? How do you think rock, jam bands, like how is all of this gonna evolve? Where do you think it's like heading? What stuff do you like, what stuff are you like, definitely, I definitely think this is gonna happen? What stuff you're like, maybe? Like, what's your like forecast? Because you've got a good, interesting like vantage point to look down at the valley, and see like, oh, they're building a building over there, and they're doing like, what do you see happening?
Well, it's really cool. No matter where we go on tour in the country, there is always, um, whether it's the band that opens for us or it's someone that comes to see us that says, "Hey, I'm in a band. I'm just gotten out of college, or I'm in college right now, and I'm trying to start a band." I think there will always be that next group of younger kids that want to get together and play and jam and improvise and write good songs. I never foresee that going away. Um, Again, like I was saying before, I think um, being a being savvy with social media is becoming and is going to become more and more important. So I think that I see those younger kids who are already more attuned to that social media TikTok world that we live in now. I see them having such great success with being a new band. I'm really excited and happy for the future. Um, like I said, everywhere we go across the whole country, there are always kids that are saying, "I'm either in a band or I'm trying to start a band or I wrote this song and I want you to hear it." Um, and it's really encouraging, and it's really humbling that anybody is even inspired by us. We have kids that will say, "Hey, I've been listening to you guys all the time, and that's what inspired me to call my friend who's a drummer and get together and try and start a band." And it's really inspiring. It's really humbling, and I can't. I honestly can't wait to see what happens. It's hard to predict what's coming, but really excited to see whatever it is that happens.
Yeah. So, well, to piggyback off that, are there any guests, I mean not guests, but anyone that like is a dream to collaborate with, to like either have come on and like jam with you guys or anything like that? Is there anyone where you're like bucket list? Like, you know what I mean? Is there anyone like that?
I mean, uh, to be able to play with Trey Anastasio would be amazing. Um, I, our guitar player Jake just flew down to Hawaii to play with Bill Kreutzmann, the drummer from the Grateful Dead. Um, um, anything like that would be absolutely incredible. Um, those kind of things they change every day. It's hard to say. Um,
Sting?
I mean, of course, that would be great. I would love that.
Just ask the guys in Goose to text him,
Yeah,
because they're super famous now, and so all super famous people know each other. They're all in one big group chat.
yeah. I
I,
mean, the biggest bucket list thing for me, who's probably my favorite musician, and I think all of the Eggy guys, our favorite musician is Bruce Hornsby. Um, to be able to collaborate with Bruce Hornsby would be absolutely amazing. Um, like I said, he's my absolute top favorite musician songwriter ever. Um, so to be able to work with him would be huge.
well, I mean, can you text him? Can,
I'm working on it. I know his bass player.
See, there we
Yeah.
go. I see you, you little
So
guy.
yeah.
Man, okay. Well, I guess is what's going on this year for you guys?
So we have a big winter tour coming up. We leave at the beginning of February, and we're going out to the West Coast for a couple of weeks. Um,
West Coast.
uh,
You do say where? We're on the West Coast. You know.
um, we we have shows in like Berkeley area. We can but yeah, West Coast all the way from like the LA area all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. Um, that's coming up soon. Um, Followed by some dates later on in the spring. Um, and then festival season kicks off pretty early, and then we're traveling the country doing music festivals again too. Um, so
And
definitely a really busy year. Um, you know, would love to see you and anybody listening out at any of these shows coming out soon. So
everyone, come out to the show. When they're in a city near you, make sure to head out to the show. Uh, b- no, okay. So wait. So in the jam scene, I'm a noob and I'm unfamiliar. Do you guys have like people go on tour with you, right? Like, and like, do people open? And like, what's that? Because I was talking to my friend Maya, who's like in love with Goose, and she was like, I was like, okay, wait, do people open for them? And she's like, not really. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, so like, what is the structure of like a gig, like for someone who's never been to a jam, like type of gig? What is that like? And is it uniform or is it like everyone kind of does it their own way?
I it changes. I think a lot of bands we've been lucky enough to open for a lot of great bands like Mo and Umphreys and Spafford and bands like that have been really kind enough to let us join them on different tours of theirs. Um, it changes. I think for us, it changes night to night. Sometimes we will have openers. Sometimes it's just us for two sets. Um, I think it's important to both nurture the scene by having bands open for you, and it's important to make sure also that you get enough time to do your thing every night too. Um, so it changes. I mean, in a single week, we might have an opener a couple of nights, and we might not a couple of nights. Um, it depends on the venue, on the city, um, and depends on how we're feeling too.
So for a show, what's like? I guess how long are they? Right, for you to do your thing. Is it like we need 2 hours? Is it like we need 30 minutes minimum? Do we need 3 hours? Like, what what does it require
If
to get
we're
egg
doing
on?
a full show, we'll play two sets. We'll play in probably about an hour long first set and an hour and a half long second set. Um, so 2.5 3 hours is about the length of a show for us. That when we feel like we can really stretch out and do the whole thing. On our last tour, our fall tour, we did mostly one set shows. But even in the one set show, we were trying to play for over 2 hours, even on a single set. Um, so we definitely want to give the best show possible. We want to make sure everybody feels like they get their money's worth. You have to you know you have to get in a cab and come to the show, or some people you have to get a babysitter for your kids, and you're going to go out to dinner beforehand, and it becomes a whole night for people, and it's really important for us to give them the full value of their experience. Yeah, and for us that's anywhere between 2 and 3 hours of music.
See, that's fascinating because do you think that attributes to the success and how much of a bond the fans have in the jam scene because bro, like when I tried to play, anytime I'd play like a 50-minute like set, people would be like, the band, everyone would be like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you playing that long? What?
Yeah.
What? What?" And I was over there, and then I would want to be like, "Guys, let's jam and solo on this. Like, this is gonna be great. Let's jam." I would literally be like, "Okay, we got 23 minutes worth of like, if you just go off the track time for a 35-minute set." I'm like, "Let's jam the other 10 minutes across some of the songs, like two or three of the songs. Let's jam for like 5 minutes." And they would be like, "Oh, no, 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 don't do that to me." And I'm like, like, what? Just jam. I'm like, what records do you listen to? I'm like, anytime I listen to a live record from a band, they jam. Like,
Yeah.
that's the fun of the fact that it's live, is like, it's not the same. It's not a recording of the record played with worse audio quality live. Like, that's where I'm like, and so then you guys are getting 3 friggin' hours, or at minimum, like 2 of solid time. So it really does become a night. It's like, if I'm going to go out and see a band that I like, I'm going to get 2 full hours minimum. It
Yeah.
really does. It becomes like, I'm going to go see a movie. Like, we're going to go get
Mhm.
dinner, and then we're going to go out to the show. Or like, I think that's the right way to do this. How
Yeah.
did I just find out about the jam stuff recently? I was over
Yeah.
there doing all these gigs for the last like 5 years, being a doofus with my egg on my face. It's 7 now, but 5 with my band. And I'm just like, and I thought I was crazy. They told me I'm crazy. You want to do a long set? Ugh. You want to jam? What's wrong with you? My
Yeah.
heavens. It was just
Well,
crazy. I felt like I was going insane, but you guys are out here playing 3-hour shows
yeah.
every night.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is like conditioning, also like of the
Oh,
fans. I think that um people are used to a Fish show or a Grateful Dead concert or a show, um,
a
where
goosing?
these
Would one
these
call it a
bands
goosing? Would you refer to it as
we certainly can.
okay.
Um, but yeah, I think that a lot of fans coming from, say, Fish. Let's take them as an example. I mean, Fish has been doing that since the late '80s. Has been playing 3-hour shows, 2 set shows, and people follow them religiously and have always. And I think that there's a little bit of um, an expectation of the fan that they want that 3-hour show. Um, and I think and again, the as I was saying before, um, the fans are really what drive this scene, and the community, and the fervent desire for more music at all times. And it's amazing, and I'm so lucky and so happy to be able to feed these people what they're asking for. You know?
But okay, 2 questions. When was that turning point when it was like, oh, we're playing gigs and like we're working it and we're trying to get people, but then once it started being like people are bringing people, they're like, we want more. Like, when did people start? Like, how long did it take? And when was like a key moment when you're like, oh, we've gone from like trying to push this, and now it's like, boom, it's kind of rolling, right? Like, it's really picked up momentum and stuff. When was that point? And then second, once you had to start giving them, I mean, I say had loosely, but like once they were like, we want more, we want more, we want everything. Like, when did you start? Like, how were you able to? Was once that started, how were you able to start like recording all your shows? Is it video and audio? Is it like, and what is the logistics of that? What's the turnaround time? Is it the same day it goes out, like, or is it the next morning, or is it the next day? Like, so first question, when was that inflection point? Second, what's the logistics of like doing that for a gig? Because that sounds
Yeah.
awesome.
Um. So we even when we were just kind of like the local bar band, um, we always tried to do a 2 set show. We there was a bar here in New Haven, Connecticut, Pacific Standard Tavern, run by one of our best friends, Adam Northway. And when we'd play shows there, we would always do a 2 set show. The night would be ours. Um, and I think also us coming from being like Fish and Grateful Dead fans, like we we always assumed a, a, a show was a 2 set show. You play the first set, you take a break, and you play another set. Um, so for us, that was always the model. It never felt like there was any other way to do it. Um, and I think we were lucky enough. I think one of our first big tours where we got to like kind of get out of our Connecticut comfort zone. The band Spafford took us on a big 6-week tour, and I definitely see that as like the first time that we really were able to branch out and see a lot of the country, and people got to hear us for the first time. Um, so can't thank those guys enough for doing that. And we've had tours with bands like Dopapod, who was one of our favorite bands when we were starting our band, and we were lucky enough to go out on tour with them as an opening act. I definitely see um, those times going out on tour as the opener, as being like the gateway for people being like, oh, I heard you for the first time opening for this band that I already like, and now I'm sold. Now I'm listening to everything that you do.
And was that a quick opening when you're opening for a band playing these 2 set shows?
Yeah,
Is it a 4 hour show?
we play
Or
for 30 to 45 minutes, starting really early.
got it.
you
So
know,
how early is early? Are you starting at 4 p.m. or are you starting at
no,
like
I
when are you?
mean, 7.
Okay. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay.
So the band, the headlining band would start at 8 or 9.
Yeah. Okay, so you'd be
Um,
out there for 40 to an hour first. You're
yeah,
going with Safford or Spafford.
yeah.
Sorry, all you Spaff heads out there. But Spafford, and then you went with Dopapod, and you're like, oh, okay, like this is really like people are getting exposed. Was there a point when like, I guess I'm assuming with this question, was there a point at which you were like, we can do this full time financially, like we don't need day jobs anymore, and was that like kind of like a big like, or because it was so gradual, like did it less
It
shock?
and it might seem crazy, but you kind of have to consider it your full-time job in order for it to work. I mean, we all
Yeah.
before it was really paying all our bills, let's say,
Yeah.
we had already quit our jobs.
Oh, okay.
Um, we we just we decided, and I think it is what you have to do at a certain point. It's like, hey, if we want to make this our job, it has to be a priority. It has to be like, I actually need this to work. Um, so yeah, I mean, before, like I said, before it was even really financially 100% financially stable. Um, we all quit our jobs. We moved in together. The four of us all, in order to save money and know exactly how much money each of us needed to even make to support our lives. We quit our jobs and we moved into a house together. Um, and that was like the catalyst for finding a way to make it work.
Yeah, so was that before you go on tour with Spafford and Dopapod, or was this like
Yeah,
during
we
when?
had already been living together, and um you know we were making it our full-time job, whether or not it was like, there were definitely times where money was very tight. um
Yeah,
but we made it work, and we survived, and it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to like tell somebody to do as advice. But in the end, like, you have to do it. You have to bite the bullet, and at least try. You got to say, this is I need this to work. And that's sort of the the push that you need to figure it out.
yeah, yeah. Man, that's interesting because I'm like like about maybe 6 months ago, I really got to the point where I was like, I'm gonna be real with myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm in grad school right now studying engineering. I'm like, okay, I'll get a day job that pays well. But I'm like, okay, but then 2 years from now, when I'm there and I've been doing it for a year, what is the only thing I'm gonna be thinking? Okay, when can I be doing music full time? When can I be
Yeah,
doing social media? When can I be doing like when can I be building an audience and a fan base and like helping, bring back rock? I'm like, so I kind of was like, oh, it has to work. You know
right.
what I mean? Because I'm like, because I'm gonna be miserable 2 years from now. As a age, I'm like, okay, and like I'm still gonna be miserable because I'm like, I want to be working towards this. I don't need to be there, at the finish line tomorrow, but I need to be working on it, like, or else it's gonna eat me up inside every day. It's like I can't relax.
Yeah,
I can go hang out with friends. I'm failing myself. Like I'm disappointed. Like, and to think like I had an opportunity to like do this and I didn't. Oh, can't live
yeah,
with that.
yeah,
No, no,
yeah,
no. So
yeah. I mean,
not an option.
yeah, yeah. It at some point you just have to you have to dive in head first, and
Yeah.
it's scary and it's not always easy. And it certainly wasn't always easy for me or any of us in the band. Um, but it worked. It worked for us, and or at least it's working right now. Let fingers crossed it continues to. Um,
You guys are awesome. So
nothing
I,
is
I don't I don't see that
nothing.
going anywhere. But
Nothing is
yeah.
ever determined. So
Look at Fish and look at the Dead though. But let's be real. Let's look at
yeah,
the fan
yeah.
base in the jam
They've had
scene.
good careers. So let's say
Yeah.
let's hope the same.
Because they're not a fickle audience. That's the thing. They're investing in a 3 hour show. They fall in love with a 3 hour show. They want more and more and more. The
Hmm.
type of like bands that fall off, so to speak, like if you look even like back in the day, look at I don't know, maybe like Motley Crue, look at like the hair bands that when Nirvana came around, they all got destroyed. It's because they were kind of like the fans were fickle. It was more of a fad to them. I might
Hmm.
go back and love a bunch of like 80s metal. I'm like, I love this stuff. I'm
Yeah,
like, they missed things. I don't know why they did this. Why did they drop them off? But like I don't think your fans are fickle. Like
yeah,
your fan bases are like in their like 70s and 60s. You've got like old ass people still rocking with the Dead. They raised
yeah,
their kids to like the Dead, and they raised their kids, and all three generations are at the show.
yeah.
Like
That was
I
me.
think you get that's I my cousin who was my drummer for the longest time. His dad loved Kiss, and he grew up. All I knew about my cousin was he liked Star Trek and Kiss. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's all I knew. Is like,
There are some similarities there actually.
oh yeah. What are they? What are they? Tell me, Mr. Mike.
Amazing costuming for one.
Oh yes. Oh, wait, are you trying to say something about me?
I do like the ascot.
Thank you, thank you. Some people said I look like Fred from Scooby Doo.
Hey, not a bad thing. I love Scooby Doo.
Love Scooby Doo. What's up, Scooby Doo? No, but okay, wait. What were we talking about? Oh, I said Star Trek and Kiss, and it was one of those things where like you just get raised into it. Kiss is not
Yeah,
ever gonna, even if they're all dead and they're replaced with friggin' AI robot versions of Kiss holograms going on stage. You've got Gene Simmons bot going out. He's friggin' Data. You know what I mean? Like you got him going out, on stage playing every night. Um, I guess an interesting thing with that is, and I think maybe the jam scene has a better approach to this because they're used to the audiences going through generations, and eventually the band gets to a point where the band's too old to gig, the band's too old to play. The Rolling Stones' answers to this seems to be, "We're just never going to die." That seems
yeah,
to be their answer. But for
and
other people,
it's working for them.
it's dude. Well, that's my kind of thing. Is like something with like ACDC or like some of these bands. It's like, do at a certain point you just have to find a cover band who's good and say, okay, we're gonna reboot like Batman. We're gonna put in a new actor at a certain point, and just we're gonna bring them in because there's audiences, there's this fan base, all this momentum built up, and we don't want it to just die when we all die and just they all disperse and they go
Yeah, I
nowhere.
mean,
It's like,
you
do
look
they?
at what like the Grateful Dead has been doing
Yeah,
with Dead and Company and bringing John Mayer into the fold, and
yeah,
um, I think that's it's a smart move. I think because I mean the Grateful Dead's music is timeless and will always um, will always affect people in a certain way. Um, I mean, they are one of, if not the greatest American rock band. Um, it could obviously be debated. I'm not here making
Yeah.
the point, either way, um, I think bringing John Mayer into the fold with the Grateful Dead is a way that even when, if I know Phil Lesh just recently passed away, and God forbid, whenever Bob Weir is no longer with us, um, someone like John Mayer is able to carry the torch of that music to another generation, and hopefully, even after John Mayer, that he brings other people into the fold, and that thing can continue forever. Um, and I think it works different for different bands. I vaguely remember, some of the guys from Fish saying like, "Hey, once someone is done or passes away, like that's it for them. They're not gonna do that thing." Um, so I think it's different for different bands. But you know, no matter what, it the music lives on forever, even if the band members are no longer doing it. You know, Thinking of the Grateful Dead or Fish, I mean, there's countless hours of recorded music, that it never has to go away, and there'll always be, like you said, cover bands that are really good, or just local musicians going to the bar and saying, "Hey, I'm going to play the music of Fish every week." And those a lot of those musicians are really really talented, and I don't think it'll ever die. You know, whether it's Fish or the Dead or Kiss or Bruce Springsteen, like someone will always be playing that kind of music.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got it's interesting because it's like it seems to be ultra famous bands and then jam bands are the only ones who have this problem where the band might outlive the fan base versus in every other like type of rock if it's like unless they manage to stay really big or have really good like branding and marketing and costuming like you're saying, right? Then the fan base dies off way earlier and not literally dies off, but like their excitement, them being
Yeah,
fans, dies, way quicker than the band actually does. And so I guess I feel like it's like a unique problem that like the Dead have like ran into and other people have ran into. But I guess yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's like because I've been thinking about this a lot. Yeah, how does a band keep going? And like I guess for me it's interesting. I recently learned the history of Kiss like a year ago watching a documentary, and I saw the difference between the Beatles and Kiss, kind of set off by 10 years, different points in rock history. But ultimately, it was like four guys with a unique chemistry, and they had a 10-year, an exact decade, where they just had the perfect thing and they got as big as possible. But then Kiss, when they imploded, instead of like the Beatles, they all went their separate ways. They said, the brand of Kiss is so strong, similar to how the Beatles was, but let's just plug in two new guys and let's just go a different route. And so I guess it's kind of like, to me, it's like a similar problem. The band itself, whether because people leave or because they all get super old or someone, you know, how do you deal with a band not being the same thing it was before? They talk about the ship of Theseus, in Greek, whatever, like a ship sails the ocean and they repair a plank on it every, whatever trip. Eventually, 10 years from now, it's
yeah. Is it the
all new
same ship?
parts. Right.
Yeah,
So I mean, I've got
I
Queens of the
mean,
Stone Age record right there. It's the only guy who's the same is Josh Homme, the guy who made the
yeah,
band, right? Is it
yeah.
the
I mean,
same?
gosh, in some ways, it doesn't matter. Um, it's the
Doesn't matter.
there's I mean, with certain bands, like I
Yeah,
like I said,
yeah.
it matters less and more for other people, but in some ways it doesn't matter. It's the music that matters. It's the way that you feel when you hear a song that you love. Um, it it doesn't. it doesn't always matter who delivers it to you, does it? I mean, um, I don't know. I could hear a cover of a song that I love and be just as moved as the original version. You know, like I said, what really matters is the song and the music and the way that it makes you feel. Does it really matter who plays it? I mean, maybe yes, maybe no. I actually I don't know if I have the answer, but my gut is telling me that
Yeah.
no. What matters is the music and not necessarily the person that delivers it. That being said, I think we become really attached to some of these people,
Yeah.
um, especially in this more internet age where like you have such access to celebrities and musicians than you ever did back in the day. I mean, you know, I could probably know what John Mayer is eating for breakfast if I really cared enough, which maybe I do, maybe I don't. Um, but you know what I mean. Like you have such access to people that I think maybe you fall in love with their personality a lot, but in the end, it's really the music that will live on forever. Um, what makes a hero? Is it what you've done, or is it that people remember you after you've gone? Um, so yeah, again, I'm not sure, but my gut is telling me the music lives on forever, whether you do or not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a question that I find fascinating is we're getting to the first time where I feel like there was the record industry, like outside of the jam scene, but you had the record industry and everything was like big, rock was alive, largely. And then it kind of fell down once stale.
They got
Record
stale.
sales, yeah, record sales probably coincided too. But record sales went down because you're not buying a CD anymore, and they're making $10 every time someone buys, or $20 times hundreds of thousands. Um, Instead, you're making like 0.00000000000, right? It just keeps going. And then, have you ever seen a Dude Where's My Car? There's an iconic scene in Dude Where's My Car where they're ordering food and the lady goes,
And
and
then
then, and that's what Spotify does with your zeros on the decimal. They just go, and then, and
true.
then, and then, and then, and then I'm like, no, you get no money. Do they pay you? Do you guys make any money off of that? Does it help at all? No, no, that's what I thought. Yeah, yeah, I can do math. But I was going to say, the industry's gone kind of down outside of the jam scene, which seems to always kind of be healthy because I think you've got that long spread of fans
Yeah,
and
yeah.
generations.
It's more about ticket sales. It's about getting people to go out to
Mm,
see you. I mean, even and I mean, I gotta say, like, unless you're Taylor Swift or something like that, like you're not selling enough records. Anybody, like even Taylor Swift has to go out
yeah,
on these giant world tours and sell out arenas.
poor her.
I know,
I'm just
I know,
messing with
but
you.
you know what I mean. Like
But yeah,
it's not something that
economically speaking, she
the
has
music
to.
industry is a touring industry
Yeah,
right now. Um, like it or not, it's
yeah.
what it is. Um, and it's important for art and for music as a whole to continue to continue to make records and put things out. Um, but yeah, the money maker is even in your top artists. I mean, um, it's the touring that's really making anybody any cheddar these days.
So when you do a jam set, because I'm thinking about this, I'm like, when you guys do a jam set, do you always play the songs longer, right? If it's a 3 minute song, if you had to put on a record, you're gonna jam it to 8, or as if it's a if it's a 4 minute song, you're gonna maybe jam it to 20 or 30, like, or do you sometimes just go for a couple of these songs, we're just gonna play them 2 minute, we're gonna play them 3 minute, we're gonna play them short, and then others you don't? Is that kind of a thing you guys do, or what's that for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there's a little bit of that, especially um, like right when the record came out and we first started playing some of these songs live. Um, we hadn't really figured out ways to to improvise on them yet. Um, it was it was kind of just it was just exciting enough to be able to play the song live
Yeah.
after the record had come out. Um, but you know the constant state of evolution that we're in as a band and as a scene, it's like, oh, even for our soul, for our spirit, can only do that so many times um, before we feel like we have to do something different. I feel for artists that have to play their hit song exactly
Yeah.
the same every single night, night after night on every tour. Um, and
So let me cut you off. That's why, as I'm talking to you, I'm like, you guys are just have it better. This is just the right way to do rock. No, but seriously, like this is like, and because I guess does jam imply like you have to have a certain style every time? Because when I'm hearing like Smile sounds very different from Laurel,
mhm.
right? Like I don't, you guys don't sound one note at all. It doesn't feel like there's a sound. And if I listen to Fish, if I listen to the Dead, like jam bands don't seem to be monolithic in their style, and even within a set, they don't seem to be monolithic. I think
Yeah,
that'd be really boring, especially if it's 3 hours. So it feels like jam is just kind of a format where the fans get a better show and the performers get more fun, and then it feeds back into each other
yeah,
forever.
yeah. I can't disagree. I mean, I think the fans of jam band music are very open minded and
Yeah,
eclectic. I mean, we can play something that is more Latin or something that's funk or jazz or pop, and they're receptive to it no matter what. And again, it keeps coming back to like the fans. I mean, if the fans weren't as open minded as they are, like we couldn't get away with that.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
fans of a lot of music where it's like, man, if Toby Keith did anything but sing a country song, it just wouldn't work. But for us, we have that flexibility to kind of do whatever the hell we want. Um,
yeah,
and as long as we stand by it and that it's a baseline level of proficient or good enough,
good, yeah,
um,
yeah,
uh, the fans will like it. And I don't mean to say that like you don't have to be good. I just mean that like, as long as we're just not phoning it in and
yeah.
doing
Well,
it
let
for
me
the
put
hell
some
of
words
it.
in your mouth because I'll give you some credit. Even at my level with like playing to small audiences, it's like once you get to a certain point with musicianship and especially with other players, you're not like stressed like is it going to be good isn't really the question anymore. It's where's it going to go. You know it's going
Right.
to be good. You guys are all good, and you guys all like playing together, and you can make things groove, and you can jam. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be fun. But like that's not the question. And I listen to Eggy. I'm like the question isn't is it going to be good. It's going to be where's it going to go. Like I was listening 2 days ago. I was at the gym. Let me set the scene. I was at the gym here in San Diego. There's a gym that used to be a Gold's Gym, like they had at Venice Beach, where Arnold and all the people would be lifting in the bicep. But it used to be like a Gold's Gym. It's this two-story building right off the freeway, right there in Pacific Beach, in the nicest, most California stereotypical part of San Diego. And the owners bought it. They stopped being the franchise and they call it the gym. Literally, it's called the gym. And you've got all these like steroided up giant bodybuilder guys, but then you've also got all these normal people, and it's very eclectic. And you've got influencer people with their tripods. And I'm there, and I'm like, okay, I sat down and I want to do the curls. And I was like, I'm going to go really hard at the beginning of my workout. I want to start with some hard stuff. I was like, okay, let me find a part in this jam. I'm listening to like whatever, I don't know, 22. Your guys put out like your 22 tour, like some of the picks on one of the parts. I was listening to your entire discography. I was like, okay, is this going to be high energy part if I go to the middle of the track? or is it going to be jammier? Is it going to be? It's going to be what's the groove? The question in
Right.
my mind was never, is it going to be good? I'd listened to the first like 13, 14 songs by that point, and I was like, yeah. And I'd already listened to you guys like a month or two ago, and I'd been listening to, but I was revisiting it just even in that day. I'd been listening to all of the tour selection, not going from like the This Is or going through the albums. I was going just straight down your
Yeah.
playlist. And so I was like, the question in my mind was never, is this going to be good? The question was, is this going to be super hype, which I want right now for this part, and it's going to surprise me and hit me with a big climax to the song? Or
Right.
is it going to be chiller? And then I'll come back to this like after the set when I'm just
Yeah.
hanging out and I'm like doing a little dance in the gym and people are laughing at me, right? When am I, so I was like, the question was never, is it going to be good? That was never the question. I'm like, Primus. I like Primus. They jam a lot,
Oh,
when
Primus
they're live.
sucks.
Oh, Primus sucks. I like them, but they suck. I mean, if you really want me to, I can critique. I can say what the things but I do. I love
No,
Primus. No, I know. But the question when I go see Primus is never, is it going to be good? The question is, where's it going to go? That's the question. And so it's like, so when you're like, yeah, the kind of game on when it comes to how, okay, what kind of styles can we do? Can we do something more country, something more funk? Can we do something a little more like hard rock? Can we do something a little more like softer, a little more folksy? Like all of those areas. And I think especially now, I think the jam audience in particular, they're used to hearing that breadth, right? And if they trust you, like I did, I'm just reporting what I experienced. I was listening to your music, and after a couple songs, it doesn't even pop in your mind. Is it going to be good? You're just like, I'm excited to. I trust you. You
yeah.
have my trust. Like at least my trust to like follow you on an idea and let him cook. Like it's like never in my mind is, are they cooked? The question is, where are they going to cook? How are they
Yes.
going to cook? To use the Gen Z, uh, all the slang. That was kind of like, I don't know. I guess it's fascinating. So, has that been your experience as a jam fan, or when you're playing live? Are you ever thinking, is this going to go off the rails? Is that even a thought that enters your brain at this point? Because you guys have been playing and jamming so like many years, so many shows, so many hours. Do you have moments where it goes off rails, or you think it's going to? Like, does that even happen?
I
It doesn't
mean,
sound like it.
absolutely. I mean, there are always
Oh,
times where we, and again, I agree with you. And we have to tell ourselves this a lot too. Sometimes it's not like we didn't sound good. Um,
ah,
it's not like this was a bad show, but we do like to talk about the jams and how maybe we wish it had gone a different way, or how somebody was hearing a certain passage differently, or after shows
mm.
and we'll be like, oh, I was doing this thing and I was hoping that you would hear it in this direction, and it's like, oh, okay, I understand that. I was hearing it differently at the time, but hey, I'm glad we talked about it. And maybe next time when that kind of thing comes up, I can follow you more. Um, and again, it is something that we do sometimes have to tell ourselves, like, hey, not that this was a bad show. I don't think it was a bad show. Obviously, it was good. We sounded good. The audience loved it. But like, how do we improve within ourselves? Is always a question. And after every show, we like to talk about the things that, again, I hesitate to say went wrong, but the things that maybe didn't go as planned. Um, and that's what keeps the music going forward, and keeps us on our toes every single night, and keeps us eager to keep practicing and getting better.
So when you do get to that climax, you do get to that point in the song that I skipped to when I really need like a boom, a jolt for like, for something, or like when you get to that climax, that point like that, what is that like as the band? Is it as fun as it sounds listening to it? Because you're like, oh my God, this is so good. It's like
Yeah.
it's the most epic moment ever. And then you guys ride it. You ride the wave like if it's like a 20-minute jam or a 28-minute thing, then you like it's like 5 minutes before the end of the song, you guys hit it, and then it's just like boom. Somehow you don't let the energy go back down. It just keeps going higher and higher. Like Is there? How do you do that? Can you tell me how that happens? How do you do that? It seems impossible because you're not playing the
Um,
same thing over and over. Like you're changing, and it keeps getting bigger when it already was as big as it could be, or at least that's how it feels. How do you do
yeah,
that,
I mean, it's
Mr. Magic? Mr. Magic Mike, different
it's
Magic Mike.
certainly. I mean, it's you know, that's for a different video.
Oh,
Um, uh,
go into the Eggy OnlyFans.
I mean, it's certainly a challenge, and
Uh huh.
um, you know, is it fun? It's super fun, and when we sometimes come from really a chaotic moment where sometimes we maybe feel like, oh, I'm which are the moments that we love and we live for, like, oh, I'm kind of hanging on here. Um,
Yeah.
it's actually, this is putting me out into um, maybe not uncomfortable, but in where I'm searching for the right answer, and then when that finally clicks in and it hits on one of those things, I mean, it can be just as surprising to us, I think, if we're doing it right. It can be just as like surprising and exciting for us as it is for the listener. And um, and again, like, certainly doing 3 hour shows night after night, sometimes it can be hard to get there, but once you start to feel that energy, I mean, you know, you kind of forget about how tired you might be or how long it's been. Or I know there have been times where we're playing and I you know, haven't looked at the clock once, and then the first time I look at the clock, it's like, oh, this show's over already. Like, really? We just played for an hour and a half, a second set, and I thought it had just been 15 minutes. um you know, so, you know, it's as challenging as it is rewarding, for sure.
Yeah, and then do you get so I get well let me okay, I want to ask you about how much you sleep on tour, right? Because you were saying no matter how tired you are. But then before we get there, you're talking about like there's that like maybe not like you're going out and you're like, oh, I don't wait. And like I feel like because I kind of was experiencing that as you were saying, I was like, oh, I felt like almost like adrenaline. You're like, oh, where's it? Like we kind of want to lock in. We're like, I don't know. And it's like that builds that like tension, that excitement. And then when you get to that climax, there was a huge like, oh my god, it's such a like release of awesomeness and kind of that tension, that energy just goes boom. It almost feels like you're setting up like a bomb when everyone's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, kind of like, I is that how it feels? Is that kind of like your experience, or is that just something that I'm like projecting?
No, I mean, it's certainly, there's lots of moments um where there is that uneasiness of like unsure where this is going, or whether or not, um you know, who's going to be the person that glues this all together. Is it going to be me? Is it going to be the drums? Is it going to be Jake doing a guitar solo and all of a sudden we lock in on that? You know, we never know what we're going to do. We never plan out any jams. We never talk through anything beforehand. Sometimes we don't even write a set list, or if we write a set list, 99% of the time we don't follow it. So um,
Really? So you
you
don't
know,
even follow a set list. The songs blur into each other then? Like how do you does just one person start playing the next
yeah,
song
someone will
and then
start
you're kind of
playing the
like,
song, or, you know,
okay.
or if we do end up like ending a song with a hard cut, someone will say, you know, hey, let's play this. Um, but yeah, I mean, you know, there's always that that feeling of uncertainty, and then catharsis when it all works out. Um,
I mean that sounds but your whole set. That's how you approach the songs but also how you approach the show.
yeah,
Like you don't plan out the songs, you don't plan out the set even, you know what you're saying? Like that's is that is that just way more fun? Because it's the exact opposite of what you're saying. Like Bruce Springsteen has to play the exact same song the exact same way every single night.
yeah,
Like that's the exact opposite. That's the antithesis. You're like, I'm not planning out the set list, and we're going. Like, screw it. We do it live. Like, do you know how exciting that is? Or it
yeah.
sounds. It feels exciting to me. Is it that exciting? And is that like kind of? does that give you an extra boost of energy, you think, that comes through instantly because there's that excitement there already? Like, we don't know how this is going to go, like,
Yeah.
at all. Like, we know we have songs, but that's all we know. That's pretty much
Yeah.
it. That's as much as you know, that's as much as we know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's certainly exciting, and it definitely, you know, makes it feel like even when we're on the road for a really long time, like that it's not just like repeating the same motions over and over again every night. It feels like a different thing and feels like a different challenge and a different task to overcome. And yeah, I think that really does keep things fresh for us and for the fans night after night. Makes it easy.
Dude, I mean, that's so much more fun. It's so funny because I hear every other like band who doesn't do kind of more of a jam type thing, where they're like, "Yeah, tour, I got to play the same thing every night, got to do the same like," and they're like, "Yeah, I barely get any sleep, and then I got to get up, and then I got to play the same set." It's like, I wonder if like if I was doing the jam thing, I'm like, I would have no problem being like, "Oh, I got 4 hours of sleep." It's like, okay, I'm tired, but the instant I get there, I'm like, oh, "What's gonna happen?" Like, boom, it's just gone, gone,
Yeah.
gone. So, do you guys get sleep? What? Like, how does
I
that work?
mean, as much as we can.
What is that? What is
Um,
that? Are you getting your 10 hours of sleep waking up with the sun? Or like, are you doing like?
certainly not 10 hours. Um, you know, some nights it's harder than others. Some nights we have further drives between shows, but we always try to get to a hotel when we can and at least sleep for a couple hours. Sometimes it is hard. Sometimes it's late nights and early mornings. Um, it it can be tough and it can be hard on the body, but it the music is what keeps us fresh, and um, you know and we wouldn't be doing this as our job if there wasn't like some amount of um, that kind of lifestyle that works for us. um, it would be really hard if any one of us like really couldn't stand not getting 8 hours of sleep every single night. um, so there's an element of like our personalities and our lifestyles that line up with this career. um, but yeah, I mean, we try to get as much sleep as we can and take our days off in comfortable places and try to use our time wisely, both for working when we're on the road and resting. It's definitely a challenge, but a challenge we're up for.
Well, Mike, you're a good man. Did anyone tell
Thank
you?
you.
You probably get that a lot. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm sorry. No, okay, do you get that a lot?
Everyone gets one.
You get one. Okay, you get one. Well, Mike, you're not a good man. No! Does that give me my one back? Did I take did that take me back? Did I get a
No,
did I get a
I'm just
reuse?
kidding.
Bro, okay. Oh my god. Dude. Hell
Well,
yeah.
thank you,
Well, we've
Connor.
been
That was
going. Yeah,
this
I was
was
gonna say
really great.
yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I know we had some issues getting the timing, and so I'm just glad we can make it happen. We can make it work.
Of course.
Okay, and then let's do a final question.
Yeah.
Now that you've experienced the experience of the Rock Show with Connor O'Farrell experience, uh, who would you recommend? Who do you think should come on the show next? Who would you like to call out and put on the spot? Maybe I don't know, Jake. Maybe
Yeah.
Donnie. Maybe
Jake Ordani would be great. I mean, gosh, I think you'd have a great conversation with just about any of us. Uh, Although I do think uh, Jake would be a really great one to get back on if you can wrangle.
can you wrangle?
I'll wrangle.
Okay, you wrangle.
I'll wrangle.
People, you heard it here first. He'll wrangle. He'll Jeep Wrangler. Wrangler. I barely know her. Oh no. Okay. Well then, what other bands? Who should I get on?
I think you'd have a
Who
great
would like to come
conversation.
on?
I think you'd have a great conversation with Daniel Donato. He's a really interesting and fun guy. I think that would be really fun. chat.
Now, Mike, big question. Can you put me in contact with Mr.
I could
Daniel
probably do
Donato?
that. I could probably do that for you.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. We got a probably, maybe, could. We've got a. Well, anyways, let's see. Where should the people find you? Where should the people stay up to date on Eggy?
So, our most recent tour starts February 5th. We start in Ann Arbor. You can go to eggymusic.com and find our whole tour schedule there. Again, we'll be on the West Coast for a little while and then make our way back to the Northeast. So we're going to be hitting the whole country here in the next couple months. So make sure you check out eggymusic.com and get your tickets.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching here. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Tell me who you want to have come on next. If you had any thoughts about this, leave them down there. But also go check out, we said eggymusic.com. Is that right?
That's it.
Go to eggymusic.com. Go to @eggymusic on Instagram. Did I guess
That's
it?
right.
Go to eggymusic.com. Eggy spelled EGGY. Not to be confused with Iggy Azalea. People might say Eggy Azalea. This is Eggy the band, Eggy Music. Very different. But arguably, Eggy's more attractive. No. Hey. I
do what I can.
Anyways. Mike, once again, you guys know he's the good man. He's a very good man. You guys need to understand. There's a great conversation. Hopefully, if you had prejudice against bass players, I'm not going to say it's gone away. I don't think it'll ever go away, personally for me. But at least you'll understand a little more. You'll get a peek behind behind the curtain of a bass player, and yeah, check it out, share it with friends, and we'll see you in the next one. Cue outro.